Oh, I haven't even started work and I'm sweating. I've got a sweat on. 12th of June 2023. We already had the hottest day. I think we had the hottest day of the year so far last week, but we've probably had a hotter day since that. Excuse me. But anyway, what we have had, we've had the best years. To live in the developed world, we've had the best years. 2019, this guy, he's been on, I've spoken about him before, again I forget his name, but he's been on a few podcasts, and it's awesome. He's some sort of professor of shit. Professor of shit that's going on. And he's going on about, his main thing is China. And the population of China. He said the basic, they're going down the fucking tubes, basically. He said officially, Chinese population, I think it's something like 1.4 billion. If the official census is to be believed. But that's an official census generated by a communist country, a communist party, a communist ruling elite. And he said, I mean, it was just vomiting numbers out like there's no tomorrow, you know. But China has had the one child per family policy. I forget when it started, but that ran until 2015. And he says, well, however the population was increasing up to that point, and then it's continued, you know, apparently it's continued to increase to what the Chinese purport it to be currently. He said, however, that's relying on the fact that since the one child per family policy was dropped in 2015, that, you know, Chinese they've got to it and they started squeezing out a lot more kids to make up for this apparent increase of population. If the current if the current census numbers are to be believed and not taken with a pinch of salt, because they've been generated by a communist society who are maybe not the most truthful people going. I'm not talking about just Chinese, I'm talking about communism. Anyway, but he talks about how, he said, for example, you had the policy, you know, one child per family policy, but the cultural thing is to have a male child. You want a male child, you want male, you don't want a girl. If you're only going to have one kid, you want to make sure it's a bloke. And that becomes problematic subsequently if you want your population to increase. If you've only got one half of the equation, you know, and then you're expecting a proportionally far lower number of women to take up the slack and really, you know, put the shoulders into the groove, as it were, put the shoulders to the task at hand, and you know, start shelling them out like there's no tomorrow. You're not being realistic. And the other thing he cites is the globalization and how it's probably going to come to an end, because you had the Americans, and this, and I've heard this from a load of other sources. The Americans are pretty much responsible for the fact that you can sail a big ship round world wherever you like. and you pretty much won't meet with cockeyed, dodgy shit happening to your ship, because the Americans take it upon themselves to police the world's oceans. And that's something that's like, you know what, we can't be asked with this shit anymore. You know, that's what the Americans are. Because it's not... The Americans, they can be pretty much self-contained. They don't need global trade, the Americans. They've got everything they need in their country. Raw materials, labour. Proportionally, the amount of people they've got in the country and the amount of space they've got in that country, the United States of America, they can be pretty much self-sufficient. So it's only us Europeans, or the consumer who's been intoxicated by idiotically cheap products produced and built and made and created in markets where the people making those products, you don't have to pay them. You know, I'll use those words, you don't have to pay them. No, you don't pay them. In comparison to what they'd have to be paid in this country, you're not paying them. So yeah, things are, the way things are, or rather the way things were. Yeah, look back to those halcyon days, because that's what they were. And you missed them. Sorry.